Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reedy with Future Pastimes, and I'm a designer on expansions for the classic Dune board game, the 2019 Gale Force 9 edition. And in this video, I want to talk about revivals, everything that you've ever wanted to know about the revival phase and all of the nuances, plus the edge cases, and how having the Tleilaxu in the game changes how revival works. So, revival is the middle phase of each game turn. It occurs after bidding and before shipping and movement. And the way that the rule book lays it out is that you get to revive up to 3 of your forces each game turn from the Tleilaxu tanks. So 3 forces. Certain number of them will be free. So everybody's faction sheet will have some information. I'll give you an example here. The Bene Gesserit, they're free revival, 1 force. So of those 3 that you can revive each turn, some of them will be free. The Fremen, for example, get all 3 of their revivals for free. So certain number is free, and then by spice. So after the free revivals, you can pay 2 spice per force to revive additional forces until you have reached that limit of 3. So the Fremen don't get to pay to revive any additional forces. They get the 3 for free. The Bene Gesserit, they get 1 for free. If they want to spend 2 spice, they can get 1 more. If they want to spend 4 spice, they can get 2 more. Then it reiterates the limit. A player can never revive more than 3 forces per turn. And to the reserves. So when you revive the forces, they go to your reserves. They don't go onto the planet, either where you have forces or just for some reason, hey, I'm just going to send these guys down to Arakeen where nobody is. No, they go to your reserves. So they will have to, in the case of everyone except the Fremen, pay to get back onto the planet so that they can be killed again and sent to the tanks. So that's for forces. Then you have leader revival. So when a leader is killed in a battle, they go to the tanks as well. If all 5 of a player's leaders are in the Tleilaxu tanks, they may revive 1 leader per turn until all of their leaders have been revived. So you can't start reviving your leaders until none are available. Now it says all are killed, but there's an asterisk, and that is with advanced Harkonnen in the game, they can capture leaders and they can hold on to them indefinitely if they wish. So if the Harkonnens have captured one of your leaders and your other 4 leaders are in the tanks, that counts. That counts as all of your leaders are in the tanks. It's all of your available leaders. Then you can start reviving. So the fighting strength is the cost to revive a leader. So if Dr. Yui is in the tanks, he is a 1 strength leader. He only costs 1 spice to revive. But if Stilgar is in the tanks, he is a 7th strength leader and would cost 7 spice to revive. So it just depends on how much spice you have and how desperate you are to get a strong leader versus a weak leader back. Revived leader status. A revived leader can be played normally and is still subject to being a traitor. So let's say that Stilgar was killed because he was called as a traitor in a battle against the Atreides. And he goes to the tanks, and then later in the game you are reviving them. Or maybe you have the Tleilaxu Gola card, which you can use to revive a leader before all of your leaders are dead. If the Fremen use Stilgar again in a battle against Atreides, they can call him a traitor again. So he has all of Stilgar's memories. So he's still a traitor. But the good thing about that is if somebody has done a traitor reveal on you, like in that example, if the Atreides have got Stilgar, if you're able to revive Stilgar, you now know that he is a perfectly safe leader against everyone else. So that's useful to know. It's a hard lesson to learn, but you've learned it. So if you can get Stilgar out, you know that he's going to be safe against everybody else, which is great. It's great to know. It was too bad that you had to learn that the hard way. But then dead again. Now, this is something that doesn't come up very often, and when it does, you're probably not having a good game of Dune. But if a revived leader is killed again, they are put face down in the Tleilaxu tanks, and that leader cannot be revived again until all of that player's revived leaders have been revived, killed, and sent to the tanks again. So Stilgar is killed, he goes to the tanks, and let's say that all of your leaders have gone to the tanks, and now you're reviving them, and you're reviving one per turn, but then Stilgar is killed again. Well, he's going to go to the tanks face down. You cannot revive Stilgar until you have revived all of the other leaders who were killed, and then those leaders are killed again. So you have to have all of your leaders face down in the tanks or unavailable, and then you can start reviving the face down leaders. So, like I said, brutal for you to have lost, you've had 10 leaders killed in the course of a game, which it can happen. And I've seen it happen. So, but it doesn't happen very often. It's not unusual that by the end of a 10-turn game, you've got 4 of your leaders in the tanks. And maybe somebody has had all of their leaders killed once, and they're starting to revive them. And maybe you've got 1 or 2 leaders who were killed twice. But to have them all killed twice, that's pretty unusual. So those are the normal things. Now, there's some other stuff about revival that is not really covered in here. What order does revival happen? Well, there is no order. There is no storm order. There's no you do your revivals, then I do mine. It's all at once. And in fact, you can wait to see what someone else is doing. Now, if you get to a conflict, like, well, I'm not going to revive until I know what you're going to revive, then any conflict is going to be resolved in storm order. So that, I've never seen that happen. But if the question comes up, then yeah, you can do that in whatever order that you want. But if you insist on waiting to do something, then that is only resolved through storm order. And that, again, that doesn't really going to come into account until you've added the Tleilaxu into the game, because there could be there definitely going to be some stuff that goes on with the Tleilaxu in the game that will determine whether or not you need to invoke storm order. And we'll get to that here in just a moment. So it's generally speaking, it's willy-nilly. That is a contrast from Dune Conquest, which revival does happen in storm order, but again, doesn't really matter a lot. I guess you can wait to see if somebody has a lot of forces in the tanks, because there's no revival limits in Dune Conquest. They can say, well, I want to know how many of your guys you're getting out before I decide how much I want to spend to get more of my forces out. So it will come into play a little bit more there, just because you can get more than 3 of your forces out of the tanks in that game. But strictly speaking, with Dune, the classic version, there's usually no need to worry about turn order. So that's basically everything that you would need to know about revival with the base game. Now let's factor the Tleilaxu in. And we're going to start with, they have a number of things on their sheet here that have to do with revival. So let's cover those. So first of all, the Tleilaxu have no revival limits. What does that mean? Well, they can revive more than 3 forces. They can revive all of their forces if they're all in the tanks and they can afford it. They can revive as many of their dead leaders as they want, whenever they want. They don't have to wait until they're all unavailable. They can start reviving them right away. So that's important. Any payments that they make to the spice bank are at half price rounded up. So it's normally 2 spice per force to revive, but for the Tleilaxu, they're getting them out at 1 spice per force. And their leaders, again, half price. What does it cost to revive Zol? Because it doesn't say that anywhere here. It costs 3 spice, and it's 3 spice, not 3 spice divided in half and rounded up. It's 3. So that's how much you have to pay to revive Zol, who is their leader with an X. He doesn't have a specific number. He's always the value of whoever he faces in battle. That's his battle strength. But once he's dead, it's going to cost you 3 spice to get him out of the tanks. And he's pretty good. He's arguably the best leader in the Tleilaxu ranks there, so it's worth the 3 spice to get him out again. And then, of course, other factions pay the Tleilaxu for their revival. So if they're paying their 2 spice per force or whatever they're paying for the leaders, that spice goes to the Tleilaxu. The next thing that they can do is called force revival, and they may increase the 3 force revival limit for other factions to 5. So that is important because now the Fremen can pay to get some forces out. So they get their 3 out for free, and then if they have a lot of other forces in there, they can spend 2 spice per force to get more of their forces out. Now, I'm going to cover a couple more things here, then I'm going to talk about some other faction-specific elements having to do with revival, so stay tuned. Also, for each faction using free revival or a Gola card, the Tleilaxu take 1 spice from the spice bank. And that's each faction, not each other faction. So the Tleilaxu get 1 spice from the bank when they do their own free revival. And their free revival, of course, is two forces. So they get 2 out for free. That's a spice. And then if other factions take their own free revival, they get a spice as well. So the more that the game goes on and the more battles that occur and forces go into the tanks, the more spice the Tleilaxu will start to earn. Their next advantage under revival is called leader revival. Upon request by a faction for a particular one of its leaders, you can set a price. And if met, revive that leader, whether it is face up or face down. So let's say Stilgar has been killed. He's in the tanks. And the Fremen are like, we really would love to get Stilgar back now. How much will that cost? Well, the Tleilaxu can be like, well, we're only going to charge you 4 spice for that because they want to get that income. But let's say they know that the Fremen are sitting on quite a lot of spice, which they don't really need to spend on anything other than treachery cards. So they might say, you know what? Stilgar's a pretty good leader, so for 9 spice, you can have him back. So yeah, that can go up or down, and they can say, yeah, you can have Stilgar back for free. So like maybe they'll do that because they're holding on to Stilgar as a face dancer. So they want to see Stilgar win a battle so that they can use their face dancer ability to put him back in the tanks and then put their own forces into that territory. So there's a number of different reasons why the Tleilaxu might want to give you a good price on a leader. But usually they're just looking to see how much spice they can squeeze out of you. Now, you may do this leader revival, however, only when fewer than 5, or in a case, all of that faction's leaders are in the tanks, and then not written, but unavailable. Again, the Harken and Capture rule, that it counts as in the tanks for purposes of revival. So when all of their leaders are unavailable, then the normal revival rules apply, which means that the Tleilaxu cannot set a price. You just pay that leader's strength in spice, and you get that leader out. But then not all of your leaders are in tanks. So after that, you have to deal with the Tleilaxu. So that is something that also a lot of people don't realize, that the Tleilaxu can be very difficult for you when you're down to your 1 leader and trying to get them out. So be their friends if you can. So that is that's how the Tleilaxu elements go. Now there's another element to the Tleilaxu in advanced rules that is a big factor on revivals, and that is their Gola ability. So the way that works is when the Tleilaxu have fewer than 5 leaders alive, they can revive the dead leaders of other factions at their discounted rate and add them to their leader pool up to a limit of 5 total active leaders. So Stilgar, again, killed and in the tanks, and the Tleilaxu have lost Blinn, who is their 1 strength leader, and it's the revival phase, and the Tleilaxu say, we're going to spend 4 spice because that is half the cost of Stilgar rounded up. And now Stilgar is a Gola leader for the Tleilaxu, and they can use him in battles. And unlike the Harken and Capture ability, the Gola returns to the Tleilaxu if it survives a battle. So that is going to be a big factor on revivals. And it should be noted that a Gola also counts towards the how many of my leaders are available. So it's very much like the Harken and Capture, except it's often forever. And now, when Stilgar gets killed again, he will go face down into those tanks. But the Tleilaxu can pay to get him out as a Gola. The Fremen can try to bargain to get him back, or they can wait until all their leaders are face down and then revive Stilgar that way. So yeah, kind of a big deal. It should also be noted that if Stilgar is used by the Tleilaxu in a battle against, let's say, that earlier example, with Atreides, who have Stilgar as a traitor, they can play Stilgar and call him out as a traitor to win that battle. And the Tleilaxu will have to send Stilgar to the tanks dead. And of course, if he's a Ghola, he's always going to go back to the tanks face down. So that's an interesting, and I've seen that development. It's pretty hilarious when that happens. So that is an important element to take into effect, because if we're talking about revival, the Tleilaxu may say, yeah, we really want to revive Stilgar as a Ghola, but we need the Force Spice. So we're actually going to wait until everybody has taken their free revival, and then we say, oh, now we have the Force Spice, and now we can do that. And so what happens if the Fremen have all of their leaders in the tanks, and the Tleilaxu want to revive Stilgar as a Ghola, but the Fremen want to revive Stilgar by spending the 7th spice? Well, now we have a conflict which must be resolved in Storm Order. So if the Tleilaxu are first up in Storm Order, sorry, Fremen, but Stilgar is now a Ghola. But you still have none of your leaders available, so you could pay 6 spice to get Chani, or one of the other Fremen leaders. So that, again, it's not a situation I've ever seen happen, but it is theoretically possible, and that's how you would resolve that. You would say, yes, the Storm Order, because there is a conflict about what we want to do, and it doesn't matter. Let's say that well, I guess it would matter, because if they can't afford Stilgar until the Fremen have taken their free revival, then what happens is the Fremen would get to go get him out first. So again, it's such a weird edge case scenario. Let me know if it ever happens to you, but I'd be hard pressed to believe that that specific kind of thing would really ever come up. Now, with the Tleilaxu in the game, there's often a question about the Fedaykin and the Sardaukar. Now, the Fremen and the Emperor sheets say they've got these special starred forces. You have your 3 Fedaykin and your 5 Sardaukar, but it says only one can be revived per turn. And that remains true even if the Tleilaxu are in the game and they are allied with a player, or they are increasing the number of revivals. So if the Fremen get their 3 free out, and they say, yeah, one of those is going to be a Fedaykin, and all they have left in the tanks are more Fedaykin, well, they're going to have to wait 2 more turns to get both of those out, because it's still 1 Fedaykin limit. Same thing with the Sardaukar. So they can only revive 1 Sardaukar per turn. Now, the other interesting thing about revival is the Emperor's alliance ability. Now, the Emperor can, of course, they can share their spice with their ally, which is great. But the other thing that they can do is that the Emperor can pay to revive 3 forces of their ally, and that is above normal revival limits. So, in a game without the Tleilaxu, and let's say the Emperor is allied with the Fremen get their 3 out for free, and then the Emperor can pay to revive 3 more. But again, only 1 Fedaykin can be revived per turn. So whether it's free or the Emperor is paid for it, they can only get 1 out. But if the Fremen have 3 other normal forces, the Emperor can pay for 3 more. That means that they could get 6 out per turn. Now, with the Tleilaxu in the game, revival limits can be raised to 5. So the Fremen get their 3 out for free, and then they are going to pay to revive 2 more. So they could pay the 4 spice to get 2 more. And actually, if they're allied with the Emperor can give them 4 spice to revive 2 more. Normally, allies cannot pay for allies' revivals. Even the Tleilaxu cannot pay for their allies' revival. And here, actually, the Emperor is not paying for it. They're giving spice to their ally so that they can pay for it. So that is their 5. And then on top of that, the Emperor can pay to revive 3 more. So in a game with the Tleilaxu, if they have raised the revival limit to 5, the Emperor can help a player get 8 forces out of the tank. So that's a big deal. It's also going to be a pretty good amount of spice for the Tleilaxu for that. But that is how that works. So the Emperor can go, their alliance ability lets them go above the limit of the revival by up to 3. Now, with the Tleilaxu's ally, their alliance ability says you may revive your allies' forces and leaders at half price. Now, the Tleilaxu is not paying for that. So when it's the wording, in retrospect, probably could have been tighter. They may allow their allies' forces and the leaders to be revived at half price. But the Tleilaxu is not paying for those revivals. They're just saying, look, you can get these forces out for 1 spice each. And then if you have to pay for your leader's revival, again, which is only going to happen if none of their leaders are available, that is when the normal revival rules apply. Then they can do that at half price. So let's say that they're allied with the Fremen. All of the Fremen's leaders are dead or unavailable, and they want to get Stilgar out, 4 spice that the Fremen have to spend to get that out. Now remember, when they have some of their leaders available, the Tleilaxu can revive an ally's leader for free. They can set the price. They can say, oh, yeah, I'm allied with the Emperor. Do you want Captain Ramshan out for free? There you go. You can have him. So that paying half price for a leader only applies when the ally must revive at the normal rules. So they can give them the discount on that, which is pretty handy to be able to get your leaders out for free otherwise, and then half price. And then the last little example I will give you here is that CHOAM has slightly different rules for revival. They have no free revival at all, but they have no limits to the number of forces that they can revive, and they only pay 1 spice each for their revivals. So if CHOAM has 10 forces in the tanks in a game normally, they spend their 10 spice, and voila, they get all of those forces out. If CHOAM is allied to the Tleilaxu, they pay half price, and it's rounded up. So the way they do that is through a bulk purchase. If they're getting 10 forces out, that's normally 10 spice, but CHOAM only has to spend 5 spice to get that out, which makes an alliance with the Tleilaxu pretty attractive for CHOAM, among other things. So that is just about everything I can think of in terms of revival. I guess I should point out that CHOAM, of course, has in the advanced game their auditor leader who can always be revived, and it's always 2 spice. So the Tleilaxu have no impact on that. They cannot change the price on that. They also cannot make the auditor into a Gola, and the Harkonnen cannot capture the auditor. So that is about every different scenario that I can think of in terms of revival. If I've missed something, be sure to let me know in the comments. Of course, that probably goes without saying. Somebody will definitely point out everything that I've missed or conflated in the comments, which I know I can always count on the Dune community to do that. But let me know if you have any other questions about revival, if anything wasn't clear. Dune is a game with many, many, many nuances. It's a pro and a con. The pro is that a lot of those nuances are thematically driven, which is fine. It also, I think, makes the game more interesting, but there's a lot to keep track of, and unless you're playing Dune all the time like I am, it's easy to miss these things or to not be sure how to interpret them. Thus, I try to do these videos to hopefully clear them up. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.